All opinions expressed on any program are those of the producer and or persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of DCTV. All producers and guests appearing on programs provide information and opinions based on information they consider to be reliable. DCTV does not affirm the completeness and accuracy. All DCTV members agree to adhere to DCTV's statement of compliance and are participants in a community medium forum where they're exercising their freedom of speech.
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis, in this series on the network of global corporate control. Today's show is pre-recorded. Thanks, as always, to Carmen Stanley, Project Director, Maurice Jackson, Studio Director, and Cruchet Starnes, Audio and Teleprompter. Today's show is called The Banker's Manifesto Isn't Working for Them Anymore. On the day we recorded this show, a Texas Twitter account, it's called 9/11 Biscuit, liked a tweet from 3 years ago about corruption in the District of Columbia and about a document that was alleged to have been written by some bankers in 1873. Even if this document turns out to be a forgery, we already know about the existence of the network of global corporate control from the study published by 3 Swiss systems analysts at the Federal Institute of Technology. Today, we're going to talk about the inevitable end to the control of the banking cartel and how we're going to implement the global currency reset. Who is we? The Coalition for the Rule of Law, which was predicted with 90% accuracy by the power transition model of the United States National War College. This coalition consists of the critical mass of people that know about the corruption in the world's money and includes the world's military powers, minus the corrupt brass. The corruption in the international financial system has been documented and proven to a critical mass of people. The bankers are beginning to understand why their demise is inevitable. Donald Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, put my letter in front of Donald Trump during the primaries. The elections were bogus. Indeed, all of the governments are illegitimate, having been replaced by corporations. I've been telling you these things for years. The number of people who are able to break through the scalar weapons to understand reality is mounting due to the 100th monkey effect. And you can read about that in the teleprompter, which I put in the archives when I upload the video after the show. The 100th monkey effect has to do with the nature of humanity and reality. We're not going to argue about metaphysical concepts until after the corruption in the world's money is removed. We know that the universities are plagued with the same corruption as are other institutions. On the 1st of March, we shared the very strong evidence, including a statement in the United States Congressional Record about the bankruptcy of the federal government. Representative James Traficant's statement of March 17, 1993, and you can read that entire statement in the teleprompter. Following up on my March 1st tweet on James Traficant and the fact that the United States federal government went bankrupt in 1933 and does not exist, the global currency reset is how we transition peacefully to our new reality, using the world's gold that José Rizal deposited with the World Bank. And on the 3rd of March, I retweeted that the banking cartel's shills are claiming that a 5-year-old interview is current. This only backfires, along with the rest of the bankers' lies. I already said that I had no proof for a CIA theory 2 years ago. And this actually, if you will stop scrolling, I'll tell you a little bit about this theory. It's a theory, which is unproven, that there's another species of humans. And believe me, I've been saying for the last 5 years that I have no proof, and I dropped this. But that's the criticism that the banking cartel wants to discredit me with. And it was a CIA agent that gave me that theory to begin with. And I'm saying that that's not my theory. The point about it is that during the global currency reset, we are going to get to the bottom of all the things that we're going to spread information around, and it's not going to be through newspapers that are owned by the banking cartel. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the teleprompter. And on the 23rd of March in 2016, I was talking about corruption in the District of Columbia. At her State of the District address, Mayor Muriel Bowser mentioned the transparency in her administration. This is false. Rushern Baker, the county executive for Prince George's County, was there. Rushern Baker, president of the County Executives of America, also has a role to play in the currency reset. The likelihood that the world's wealth that is administered by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF is deployed in a global currency reset is over 90%, according to the Department of Defense's power transition model. And you can read about what I said in 2016. And also, I spoke to a person in Mayor Bowser's office before I went to the State of the District address. I described the corruption in the District of Columbia and my many attempts to go back to my office at the World Bank's headquarters. And the aide for Muriel Bowser suggested that I meet with Mayor Bowser. The elites are counting on the divide and conquer strategy that has served them so well to allow them to perpetuate the centuries-old corruption. They don't seem to understand what's happening when I post this information on the internet. I'm also going to the Dutch embassy to discuss my tweet to their Minister of Finance, Jeroen Dijsselbloem. And you can read what I said at that time in 2016. And I also wrote in 2016, another officer in the U.S. military requested that I friend him on my Facebook page. The communication is flowing in the United States military, which is refusing to go along with a unilateral surrender via a crash of the unconstitutional Federal Reserve note. Mainstream media and the 80% of the captive alternative media are simply discredited and sidelined. And there was a video interview of Major General Albert Stubblebine in 2016, which I was linking then. And he retired as the commanding general of the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command, UNSCOM. And that was tweeted to my Twitter account, which my Twitter account, you have no idea how many people are reading from it, because Twitter doesn't want you to know. The inane presidential debate, this is written before Trump was so-called elected, but he was never elected because the Electoral College was not constituted. The Constitution is not in effect. And the candidates were pre-selected by the banking cartel. And it's an attempt to prevent us from returning to the Constitution of 1789. None of the candidates have acknowledged the corruption that is now in plain view on the internet, or the ready solution that John Kennedy and Ronald Reagan began, reclaiming the United States monetary gold reserves in the global debt facility. And there's a fellow, Mike Brakey, who's been writing to me, and he wrote me then in 2016 about a banker's manifesto of 1892, showing how the network of global corporate control thought that we were too stupid to catch them at their game. I've been blowing the whistle for many years with the District of Columbia. This corruption goes very, very deep. The District of Columbia was created to be a booby trap for the United States. The mayor of the District of Columbia is supposed to be the military commander for the people of the District of Columbia, because the United States was really under martial law. The Coalition for the Rule of Law on the Board of Governors of the World Bank has ended the martial law in the United States. The U.S. is now in interregnum, which is to say that Mayor Muriel Bowser is not in charge of the District of Columbia under a military rule in the United States. And now we're going to talk extemporaneously. And you can also see in the teleprompter some of the graphics that people have been spreading around the internet. There is a group of people that understands very well just exactly how deep the corruption is. They saw what happened with the Twin Towers. They've been watching some of the materials I put out and some of the materials that other people put out. And yes, no, there's very little likelihood that the banking cartel is going to continue in power. The likelihood is less than 5%. And what I'm asking you to do is to reach out, those of you that are able to reason, and that's about 1 out of 10, maybe 20%, because there's very strong electromagnetic weaponry that's used to hypnotize people. So many people are just not able to reason. But the ones that are need to be reaching out to each other because there's only so much that you can do when you're talking through teleprompters and on the internet. You really need to be speaking one-to-one and over a long period of time. And that's what I'm asking you to do. There's another reason why you need to do this. It's for your own protection. And that is for people that meet regularly with groups to discuss these things. The weaponry is not trained against you because they know that it's not effective when people are reasoning in groups. So that's an important thing that you need to do. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we're going to be exchanging the currencies. And we're not going to do it just immediately with gold. You can't do that because the currencies are going to have to be calibrated against each other. And gold maintains its value. So you're going to have currencies issued by the treasuries first. And another reason why we have to have a two-step approach is because you're going to be getting gold. Currency is going to be out of gold. And we need to, not all of the paper currency is going to be exchanged. We need to limit the amount of currency per person. And also people who have gotten their wealth through trafficking and other things, we're not going to allow them to exchange that currency. So there's going to be currency which can be exchanged for the gold, the currency with gold in it. And the way we know that is that's going to be currency issued by the national mints. And it's not going to be the members of the BIS. And this is going to take a while because, you know, in economics, if you try to do something very quickly, there's going to be a multiplier effect. It's going to destabilize the world's economies. We don't want that. So there's going to be a period of time that, yes, we're going to allow people to use the banking cartel currency, but the currency that can be exchanged for gold, that's obviously going to be much more valuable, and that's not going to be circulated. People are going to hold on to that, obviously. So, yes, we're going to have to do this in a very gradual fashion. So it's not going to happen immediately. But the fact is, it is going to happen because the chances are greater than 90%. And people know that, that this is corrupt currency, and this currency is it's maintaining the banking cartel in place. And people don't want the banking cartel to be maintained in place. There was a study under Ronald Reagan which showed, it was called the Grace Commission Report, it showed that the taxes that you pay, they're going to the banking cartel, all of them. They're not going to the expenditures that you think. And where is the banking cartel getting the money to pay for these things? It's a crime group. It's like the mafia. The mafia is in league with the governments. The current governments are a mafia. And this corruption has come into existence over thousands of years. So it's not going to go away that quickly either. But it is going to go away, and it's going to go away very peacefully. Now, some of the questions that I'm getting is, what about the dinars, whether people are going to get rich with dinars? And I've said no. If you don't live in a country, you're not going to be able to exchange that country's currency for aurum. And if you want to know how we're going to be paying for international trade, right now, the BRICS countries are not using dollars anymore. They're using offsets against the trade that they conduct with each other. And 134 developing countries have also said that they're not going to be using the United States dollar in their trade. So we're already on notice that we're moving away from Federal Reserve notes. And what the banking cartel had thought was that this was going to be a way to for the United States military to surrender. But we know that that's not happening either, because Japan and Germany depend on the United States military for their defense, and they don't want to surrender unilaterally either. So we know that there is going to be this power transition model from the United States military school. This is 90 to 95% accurate. And so we know that the banking cartel is not going to remain in power. The question is, when is it going to understand that the time to step aside is now and to permit us to transition peacefully? Just recently, somebody sent me a video where they've got a half-baked scheme. Their way of staying in power is by convincing us to get mad at each other. It's called divide and conquer. And their latest scheme, they used to have a scheme called Treasury direct accounts. And then people realized that the bankers were not going to honor those contracts. So now the latest thing that they're trying to convince people to do is they're trying to convince people to become creditors. I just saw a clip from Australia. Now this is, if you try to do business with the banking cartel, you really have have to realize that they're not going to honor their contracts. They didn't honor the Treasury direct accounts, and they're not going to honor this approach either. So you'd really be better served to just work together with all of us. Now, there are people who think that they can, through legal mumbo-jumbo, that they can pay their bills using the Treasury accounts. That's kind of like the Treasury direct accounts. No, that doesn't work. It doesn't work because the banking cartel is not going to honor their contracts. So you had better realize that the way for us to regain our wealth, which it was put aside for the world's people in the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, and I'm the lawyer for the Global Debt Facility. It's going to happen with all of us working together. It's not going to happen with an individual trying to negotiate with the banking cartel. So that's the first thing. And I told you all that a couple of weeks ago, because this is going to be, this is pre-recorded, a couple of weeks ago, the banking cartel tried to kill me by running a red light. They knew where I was going because they could see from my GPS, and I didn't go into the intersection. I'm hoping that my strong intuition and the people that are there and are protecting me, that I'm going to continue, and that's also one of the signs that you have that the global currency reset is going to continue. Obviously, the world's monetary gold reserves are there, whether or not I continue to live. But since I've been doing this job for a while, and people know that I'm very transparent, and I'm not acting on my own. I'm simply acting, as I say, one of my functions is like a switchboard operator. I'm giving information for all the people that are involved, and that's everyone on Earth. People say, well, this is public access TV. What good is the information? The information is very good, I'm assuring you. It's much better information than information you're getting from the mainstream media, because this coalition that's from the National War College is 90 to 95% accurate, and there is a coalition, and I'm the one who speaks for this coalition. This was agreed. You can see from the correspondence that I've been clearing things. When I issued a press release on the global currency reset, that's what we call this movement to get away from the fake paper currency and to get rid of this corruption. When I issued the press release, I cleared it with all the embassies. You can see the emails that I send to all the embassies, and I write the minutes, because the World Bank and IMF, their secretariats are the members that are corporations. Those are not the real minutes. The real minutes are the ones that I clear with the embassies, and they've been the same minutes for a number of years, talking about the global currency reset. We're now at an intersection, and we're either going to continue with the global currency reset, and that's going to be 90 to 95% likely, or we're going to have World War III and we're going to go extinct. And the chance that that happens is less than 5%. So I say that one of my functions is also the canary in the coal mine, because as long as I'm there and we're still at this crossroads for the global currency reset, you know that we're going to have the global currency reset. And I was going to explain to you, I said that the mints in the countries are the ones that are going to be under the supervision of the people in the various countries. And the countries are going to be reconstituting their governments. Nobody's going to interfere with that process. certainly not anyone in the World Bank or in the Global Debt Facility. This is something which is going to happen from the grassroots up. And I will expect, actually, that there's going to be any number of provocateurs from the banking cartel that are going to get in the way of a legitimate return to legality. In the United States, we have something called Article 5, and right now there's a group that's financed by the banking cartel that's trying to ruin this process. So until we have the local communities that are going to work from the grassroots up in a way that is not corrupt, it's going to be very difficult to return to constitutionality. But since we've been living with this corruption for a long time, by now we've seen a lot of the tricks, and so the same process that we've had in trying to return to the global currency reset and to get rid of the corruption, we're learning. A lot of people are saying, well, why don't we quickly get rid of the corruption? We have to learn how. It's going to take us as long as it takes. The fact is that our reality is very different than many people suppose. Some of us are aware of the corruption that's responsible for the way we've been duped. Eventually, all of us are going to understand. The reason we know that this is true is because we are all interconnected, and enough of us know what the reality is. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis.